When we're young, we have an amazing, positive outlook about how great life is going to be, but somewhere along the line, we forget to dream and end up settling. Join Up Dots features amazing people who refuse to give up and chose to go after their dreams. This is your blueprint for greatness. So here's your host, live from the back of his garden in the UK, David Ralph.
Good morning to you all, my merry listeners. How are we all out there in internet land? Do you know, it's the 20th of July and it's 181 days till Christmas. So it's time to get your thinking caps on. I'll make a list. I'll make a list on the website so you can choose the perfect gift for me. And did you know also it was this day that Neil Armstrong walked on the moon? Quite interesting little fact there for you. But let's get today's guest on, because he is, in his own way, he's got more of an amazing story than Neil Armstrong, because he is somebody who had a tragic accident which ultimately could have been the best thing to happen to him. Known as Yo Pal Hal since hosting his first radio show at age 15, his greatest triumph came at age 20 after he was hit on by a drunk driver and found dead at the scene. Despite being clinically dead for 6 minutes, in a coma for 6 days, breaking 11 bones and being told he may never walk again, he defied the logic of doctors and the temptations to be a victim, and he bounced back to prove that all of us, and I mean all of us, are capable of overcoming extraordinary adversity to create extraordinary results in our personal and professional lives. He's appeared on dozens of TV and radio shows, and he's been featured in numerous books, which is not a surprise when you consider how his mental attitude has created something so amazing out of something that could have finished him off. So let's bring on to the show, to start connecting up the dots of his life, the one and only Hal Elrod. How are you today, Hal?
Fantastic, David. I'm excited. Let's have some fun.
Well, we are going to have some fun, even though, I'll be honest, your story is a bit tragic in certain places. When you've obviously heard that story many, many times, because it is the thing that has made you who you are. But when you listen to it and you hear, I was clinically dead for 6 minutes, does that still sort of send shivers up your spine?
It doesn't anymore. It's something that I've so, many years ago, I've come to peace with it. In fact, I came to peace with it in the hospital, to the point where the doctors actually thought I was in denial because I was so happy. I was, in fact, I'll just jump right into this one of my favorite anecdotes, favorite stories from that time. The doctors called my parents into the hospital, into their office about a week after I came out of my coma. So, as you mentioned, I had my heart stopped beating. I was dead for 6 minutes, 6 days in a coma, came out of the coma to face really an unimaginable reality. I mean, it's almost like waking up from a nightmare, and no matter how hard you rub your eyes and try to shake your head and shake it off, you realize that the nightmare is your real life. I've got all these broken bones, and they're saying I'll never walk again. And it was obviously a very, very traumatic to deal with that, even more so mentally and emotionally than physically in some ways. And within a matter of days, I decided that, you know what, I can't change it. Just like so many things in life that we can't change anything that's happened up until this point, right? There's most of our life, most of the things that we create negative emotional, suffering and pain over are the things that we can't go back in time and change. They're the things that already happened, whether they happened 5 minutes ago, 5 days ago, or 5 years ago. And so I decided, since I can't change it, I'm going to accept my life as it is unconditionally, accept all the things I can't change, be grateful for everything I have, and I'm going to focus on creating progress every day toward getting my life back where I want it to be. And the doctors called my parents in about a week after I came out of the coma, and they sat them down and they said very seriously, we're concerned with Hal. Every time we're around Hal, he's always smiling and laughing and joking and making us laugh. And they said, that's frankly, that's not normal for a 20-year-old young man that's been told he may never walk again. And they said, we believe this is so difficult for him to accept. His reality is so unimaginable, so difficult, that he has just checked out mentally and he's in a state of delusion. They thought I was delusional. And that was their only explanation for how I could be so joyful and smiling and joking all the time. So they encouraged my parents to try to talk to me and get down to the bottom of how I was really feeling. Find out, get him to admit the anger or the sadness or the that he's afraid or that he's depressed. Get him to feel those things while he's here in the hospital in a safe environment so we can work through it. So my dad comes in that evening, and I'm watching television, laying in a hospital bed. Now, keep in mind, my leg had broken in half, so I've got a 14-inch metal rod in my leg, holding my femur together at this time, and I still have it. My leg's up in a sling. I've got my arm, same thing, broken in half at the humerus bone. It's got a metal rod in it. It's sewn together. So my ear is almost completely torn off, so it's hanging on, sewn back on. My eye is, destroyed to the point where my eye socket was actually rebuilt in titanium. So it's literally 2 weeks after the night of the crash. So I'm in pretty bad shape sitting in my hospital bed. My dad comes in, and he gets very, very somber. And I can tell something is, his eyes are welling up, tears welling up, and he's trying to hold it together. And he says, Hal, hey, I know that when you have friends here and visitors and family, I know you guys are joking and laughing and reminiscing, but he said, when everybody's gone and it's just you by yourself and, the lights are out and there's nothing to distract you, how are you really feeling about this? We haven't really talked about this. Are you sad? Are you angry? Are you scared? Are you feeling down or depressed? It's okay to feel these things. It's normal. I think it's important that we talk about them though, and that you kind of get them out. And I could tell my dad was very emotionally distraught, and so I really thought, I thought long and hard about his questions, and I really contemplated: am I sad? Am I angry? Am I depressed? Am I scared? And, I smiled at my dad and I said, Dad, I thought you knew me better than that. And he was kind of taken aback, and I said, Dad, I live my life by the 5-minute rule. I learned this when I was one of the top sales reps when this accident happened for Cutco Cutlery. I was one of their top sales reps. I said, I learned this in my Cutco training, 5-minute rule. It's okay to be negative when things go wrong, but not for more than 5 minutes, right? Set the timer on your phone or look at the clock, bitch, moan, complain, scream, punch a wall, whatever you got to do. I said, you give yourself 5 minutes. And then as an intelligent human being, after your 5 minutes is up and you've gotten to release some of those feelings, you completely stop resisting the thing that you can no longer go back in time and change. You accept it unconditionally, and you focus all of your energy on reality, not the reality that you wish it would have been, the reality that you're dealing with and how you can make the best of it. And I said, Dad, it's been more than 5 minutes. It's been 2 weeks. I said, and there's only one of two outcomes. I told him, David, I said, either the doctors are right and I will never walk again and I'll be in a wheelchair the rest of my life. And I've already accepted if that's what happens, I will be the happiest person you've ever seen in a wheelchair, because I don't know why I would choose anything else. I said, the other option, though, and this is the second option that I'm putting all my energy into, is that I will walk again. The doctors might be experts in medicine, I said, but they're not experts in me. And I'm going to spend every day I'm visualizing walking again. I'm maintaining faith. I'm praying about it. I'm believing in it. And I will do that until I am absolutely proven that it's impossible. And if that's the case, I'll be in a wheelchair and I'll accept it. And, he went back to the doctors and after he first questioned me a little, are you sure, Hal? Is this really how you feel? You're not just delusional? And I said, Dad, this is it. And here's the lesson, David. It was the opposite of what the doctors thought. And I think this is one of the most valuable lessons that a human being can adopt into their life. And that is, the doctors thought I couldn't accept this difficult reality, this difficult tragedy. So therefore, I couldn't be genuinely happy. It must have been a facade. And what they didn't realize is it was the exact opposite. I had fully, unconditionally accepted my reality as it is. I put zero energy into wishing and wanting that it were different, because I realized that when we put energy into wishing and wanting something were different that cannot be different, that's out of our control, that we create emotional pain for ourselves unnecessarily. It would make ourselves miserable.
Right.
And so because I accepted it.
Let me stop you there, because I wanted to jump in so many times, Hal, because there were so many areas I was going, Now, I think the thing about the doctors, though, is it wasn't that you were not normal, as in you weren't accepting it. It was more of a case of they hadn't seen it before, because no matter how you parcel it, your reaction, I don't think I would have had that reaction. I think I would have laid there moping and groaning, and I think the majority of people would as well. So was it something that was inherently in you? That if you went back to sort of a 2-year-old and a 5-year-old and a 10-year-old, you was always somebody that could see things for the brighter side of life? Or was it something that when you were faced with that yes or no decision, you're either going to be in a wheelchair or you're going to do your damnedest not to be in a wheelchair, then that strength of that courage, that commitment came out of you?
So that's a great question. And there's a couple things I think that contributed to that mindset. First was when I was 8 years old, I woke up one morning to my mother screaming across the hall in her bedroom, and I ran across the hall. It was just me, my mom, and my baby sister, Amory, who was just a year and a half old, that were at home, and my dad was at work, and my sister was at my grandma's house. I ran in, and my mom was holding her 18-month-old daughter, my sister, dead in her arms. And she had a heart failure and died. And my mother, within a matter of, I think it was like 6 weeks, my mom founded a support group for other parents in our community that had lost children. And I really think that planted a seed for me to see how to respond to adversity, that when the most horrific tragedy occurs, that there's always an opportunity there. There's always an opportunity to serve other people and to add value and to contribute to others. And in doing so, we heal ourselves, right? In doing so, when we get off self and on purpose, it's able to, we're able to cope better with our challenges. So I think that was the first thing, is that I kind of learned, hey, when something goes horribly wrong, you ask yourself, how can I use this? How can I turn this into a positive? How can I help other people through my experience? And the second thing was, when I started in sales, it goes back to what I already shared in the 5-minute rule, right? The 5-minute rule was taught to me to deal with, customers canceling appointments or canceling orders or kicking you out of their house or whatever, because, just being rude to you. That was obviously a very minor adversity compared to what I dealt with. But I had spent the last year and a half practicing that mindset of, not being upset for longer than 5 minutes. And I got to the point where I even actually told my dad during that conversation, I said, Dad, I've been really working on making the 5-minute rule the 5-second rule, because as I've been practicing this, now being upset for 5 minutes starts to feel pointless. I'll get to minute 3 and I'll be like, this is so gosh darn it. And I'm looking at my clock going, okay, well, so I got 2 more minutes where I have to be upset. It just doesn't, it literally changed the way I thought about it. So I got to where I accepted everything I couldn't change before it even happened. And then if it happened, I would say, gosh darn it, whatever. And, then I'd focus on, okay, can't change it. And those became the magic words. Can't change it. What can I focus on that's in my control that will move me forward in my life? And I think that was the things that contributed to that mindset. So
when you was a young chap, obviously your life now, in many ways, you would go, it's a wow. You're doing exciting things. You're on TV, you're on radio, you're doing podcasts. You've got so many aspects coming into you, which I'm sure before this tragic situation occurred, couldn't have been on your radar. But what was it that you was focused in on as a young man? What was your dream path?
So my dream as a young man, if you will, it started when I was 15 years old. I started DJing high school dances. So as in playing the music, and being the disc jockey at junior high dances. I was a high school student, and I started doing the junior high dances around town. And I really found a passion for that. I loved making people have fun and have, dance. I wasn't a musician. I had no talent there. So, I could play the music, but only through my boombox there. But what ended up happening was that dream, I thought, I want to be a radio disc jockey. That was my dream. And at 15, I got a phone call from the local radio station manager that had heard that I was a DJ, and he offered me a job on the radio. And that's where, Mom gave me the nickname Yo Pal Hal, and I started, I hosted a weekly radio show my sophomore year of high school every single week, where, I was on the air for 3 hours, gave concert tickets away. And at 19, I had another gig on a radio station, and I was pursuing the dream in my first year of college. And then that's when I got an offer in a sales job. A friend of mine was in sales. I had no intention of it being anything more than just a summer job to make a little extra money to to pay for my, while I pursued my DJ dream. And 10 days into the job, I had broken the all-time company record for the most anyone had sold in their first 10 days in at least in the western half of the United States. I think there was one guy that had done more, but it was a 50-year-old company. It was a 50-year-old company. And that was where I was like, wow, the new dream was born. I want to be like the greatest sales rep in the history of this company, and then maybe the greatest manager, and lead other people and inspire others to do what they do. And then that was the dream. And then the accident happened, and I kind of had this sense of, there's a bigger purpose behind why this happened, and I'm gonna get through this as best I can so that I can figure out how to pay it forward and help other people with what I learned.
I bet I know why you was good at sales, Hal. I used to be a sales manager up in the city of London, and the first thing that I am getting from you is there's passion, and you can't teach passion. Somebody's either got it or they haven't. And I believe that you would study those products inside out, and you would know them back and front, so that if anybody threw an obstacle in your way, you could overcome that. And I think the bottom line is, I bet you were selling a product that you believed in.
Yeah, definitely believe in the product, and you're right. I always tell people that I didn't understand anything about sales mechanics. I had never read a book on selling. I didn't understand the sales process. I was successful because of two things: enthusiasm and work ethic, right? And you called it passion. So enthusiasm, passion, kind of the same thing. But yeah, I went in. This is how I talk. I just get excited. I get overly excited. I talk too fast, right? It's natural. I don't even think about it. And I think that by the end of a sales presentation, the customer probably didn't hear or didn't remember half of what I said, but they were just like, wow, you're excited and this seems pretty good. And okay, let's do it, And I worked really hard. I worked 12 hours a day for the first 10 days in my sales career. And that's why I broke the record, because I outworked everybody else.
But that is a learning curve for all our listeners out there, that the things that do inspire you, I play Steve Jobs' speech every single show, and the whole speech itself is probably about 16 or 17 minutes. I don't remember any of it, other than even the bit that I play on a daily basis. If you asked me to quote it, I couldn't. Yeah. But if you ask me to explain how it makes me feel, that's a different ballgame. And it's when you touch people and make them feel your passion and your enthusiasm, that is when magic happens. You did it in a sales environment, you're now doing it in a wider environment, but it is passion, it's enthusiasm, as you say, it's work ethic. And if you have got those things, and if our listeners are out there and they feel that they've got something in them that they need to present to the world, if you have those two elements before anything else, you've got a head start, haven't you?
Yeah, and let me say, absolutely you do. And let me say this, you mentioned that passion was something that you either have or you don't have. And I want to slightly negate you on that. I think it is something that you can develop. And the reason I say that is I'm not passionate about something necessarily when I'm sitting there thinking about it. Sometimes I am, but usually the passion is generated when I talk about it. So whether I get on stage and, as a keynote speaker, I'm giving a speech to the audience, it's like what comes out of my mouth, that didn't even, a lot of times I say things that I've never said in my entire life when I'm in that moment, right? When I'm connected with someone who I can share something with that will add value to their life. The passion is co-created in that moment by my audience and by me. And if I was sitting on my couch, the passion wouldn't exist in and of itself. It would be lying there dormant inside me, if that makes sense.
Yeah, but does it have to be coming out all the time? That would be just strange, wouldn't it? It'd be like having a fountain that you can't turn off. Surely the power of a fountain of positivity is the fact that when you need it, you turn it for maximum effect.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's the thing but I'm not sitting around all the time just passionate 24/7. I think that we have to take responsibility for generating the passion that we need. And how do you do that? Well, whatever you have to do, you either, write yourself an affirmation that reaffirms what you're passionate about, why you're passionate about it, what you're committed to doing to transfer that passion into action to create the results that you want in your life, right? So, you've got to generate the passion. And I think that's true for all of us. If you don't feel passionate, if someone tells me I'm just not passionate, Hal, and I will go, well, who the hell's responsibility is it to generate the passion that you want? Mine? No, right? It's absolutely all of us have to take individual responsibility for generating the energy that we need, the passion that we need, the motivation that we need to do the things that are necessary to, to create the life that we really want.
Well, when you did get hit by that drunk driver, and I'm not being flippant here at all, this is just me asking a
Sure.
simple question, but was there any kind of out-of-body experience or whatever? Were you aware, like some people say, that they were actually dead, or was it just blackness and you didn't know anything at all?
It absolutely, I did not see a light, or let me say this, I don't remember if I saw a light. Because my brain, I suffered one of the most common brain damage for a head-on collision. If you imagine, if you're doing 70 miles an hour on the freeway as I was doing, full speed, the car that hit me was also doing 70 to 80 miles an hour. Not sure what that is in kilometers, but we hit head on. Well, what happens is the safety belt stopped it grabbed my chest, it stopped my body from moving forward. However, my brain was still traveling 70 miles an hour when my skull stopped moving. And the entire front of my skull was immediately crushed. And my memory is wiped out for about 2 weeks of my life. My last memory was about, 10 to 30 minutes before the accident occurred. And my first memory is about 2 weeks after the accident occurred, and there's no memory in between. So my parents asked the doctors, hey, could he have seen a light? Would he know that? And they essentially said the odds of him remembering whatever he saw during that time are not very good, because his brain was smashed moments before, he went into a coma and before he died.
In a way, that must be a great thing, isn't it? That you do lose that part. If you had that going through your head all the time, that must be terrible. That must be nature's way of actually clearing the deck somewhat and allowing for your recovery to take place.
Yeah, I would imagine that, I always say that thank God the body works the way that it does, and I was immediately in a coma, for example, right? I mean, I couldn't have imagined being awake, when I would have died of shock probably, blood running down my face, my ear, I can't even imagine. So, everything, the body and the brain, work in miraculous fashion together.
I'm going to play Steve Jobs in a moment because I think it's about the right time, because he talks about truth, trusting yourself, faith and passion and all those kind of things. But just before we transition over to him and to the next part of your life, if you look back on it now, would you say that really, as we call it in the show, was your big dot? That was when your path moved in a direction that you couldn't possibly have perceived at the beginning? Or was there other things around that time that was actually leading you to a different life?
Yeah, there's, I always say that I've had 2 rock bottoms in my life, which are, a rock bottom is something we've all experienced where it's different for everybody. It doesn't compare to anybody else. It's how, for whatever experiences in your life have felt like you didn't know if you could get through them. You didn't know how to get through them. It was the worst it had ever been before. And that was really my first rock bottom that led me to, become a high school and a college speaker. And then 8 or 9 years later, and we'll get into this after we listen to the Steve Jobs message, but I had my second rock bottom, which surprisingly was much worse than my first. And people always say, how do you get worse than dying? That seems like that'd be kind of the worst it could be, but it was actually a lot harder for me to deal with after. And my life's work today is really a result of both of those rock bottoms and what I learned getting through them so quickly that created, who I am and the work that I do to this day. And my new book, obviously, The Miracle Morning, was born out of that second rock bottom.
Well, let's listen to Steve, and then I'm going to be fascinated to ask you about this second rock bottom, because I would have said exactly the same. How can it be worse than dying? That's
Sure.
got to be the ultimate. This is Steve Jobs.
Of course, it was impossible to connect the dots looking forward when I was in college, but it was very, very clear looking backwards 10 years later. Again, you can't connect the dots looking forward. You can only connect them looking backwards. So you have to trust that the dots will somehow connect in your future. You have to trust in something, your gut, destiny, life, karma, whatever. Because believing that the dots will connect down the road will give you the confidence to follow your heart, even when it leads you off the well-worn path, and that will make all the difference.
Because you seem to me, Hal, somebody that didn't just go off the well-worn path, you were like smashed off the well-worn path. Do those words have resonance to you, or is your life directly related to the incident?
Absolutely, those words resonate with me, and I think that for all of us, it's kind of to say what Steve said in another way. They say hindsight is 20/20, right? I don't believe that we need to wait until the future to be able to look back with hindsight and be able to see the benefits of our adversity. I think that we can go through life with the understanding and the level of awareness that every experience, good or bad, is an asset to us if we choose to see it that way. And, one of the most popular adages is, everything happens for a reason, right? We've all been told that, and we've heard that, and we usually hear it when we don't want to hear it. Like you're going through a really difficult time, and a well-meaning friend or coworker puts their hand on your shoulder and says, "Don't worry, friend. Everything happens for a reason. You'll see." And you're just thinking, "Shut up, leave me alone. I don't want to hear it." Right? Well, this is my take on that adage, on the truth behind that. Because whenever I speak, I always ask the audience. I say, "Hey, raise your hand if you believe that everything happens for a reason." And usually about half the hands go up, give or take. And then I always say, raise your hand if you don't believe that, or maybe you're not sure. You're not really sure if you buy into it. And the other half of the hands go up. So my take on this, I think, is one that we can all buy into. And it's the idea that everything does happen for a reason. However, it's not as most people think. See, everything happens for a reason, but it's our responsibility to choose the reasons. Most people think they're supposed to figure it out, like it's some force outside of themselves that will tell them why this happened. And they go through life banging their head against the wall, going, "Gosh, why didn't deserve this? Why did this happen? I'm a good person," versus going, "Okay, it's my responsibility to choose the most empowering reasons for the adversity in my life. How can I use this experience to be stronger than I was before it occurred? How can I use this experience to teach other people how to be stronger than they were and get through their challenges," right? So every experience, again, it's an asset. It happens for a reason, but we get to choose the reasons. I could have been that victim and been like, "Oh, I don't deserve this, and I'm never going to walk again, and, woe is me." But instead, I don't claim that I'm special. I just was able to choose that there's no point in feeling sorry for myself. There's no point in wishing it didn't happen to me or feeling bad about it happening. The only thing that makes sense intelligently, if I want to have a great life, which we all do, is I've got to look at how can I turn this adversity into an advantage, and by putting all my energy into that, I was able to do exactly that, right? Whatever we focus on expands, and that was my focus.
If you was episode 1, I would have said you were special. And I would have said that mindset. But now you're episode 83, I've heard the same story over and over and over again. And it seems that every single person that comes on the show that has hit success has been driven by something bad happening. And it might be the case that they were made redundant. It might be the case, as in my case, that I had a really terrible manager and I just couldn't bear working with her anymore. It could be the case that, there's been a death in the family or something. And literally every single person will say, at the time, I thought it was the worst thing to happen, but I look back on it now and go, thank God for that. And that's really a message that I want to get out to the listeners out there, that if you are in a situation that is rubbish, if you are in a relationship that is rubbish, it is your responsibility to do something about it. And until you take that responsibility, as Hal was saying, then you're just going to be trapped. No one else is going to help you. You will have to play the victim card. And I don't want to be harsh on that, but it is that sure. It's cut and dried. As soon as you mentally flick that switch to say, yes, I'm not putting up with this anymore, then your life starts moving forward, and it's as simple as that. And then all the kind of passions and stuff that people talk about, you've got to find your passion and all that kind of stuff, it generally will start finding you, and then you will start to see a life that you couldn't have dreamt possible.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. And I think that, it's, it doesn't mean it's going to be easy, by the way. For anyone listening, I mean, very, very few things in life are easy. But when things are easy, we don't grow. You know what I mean? Like, life to me is about becoming a better, consistently just always becoming better than who you were when you woke up, right? I mean, that's my book, The Miracle Morning. That's what it's about. It's about dedicating time every day when you start the day to become a better version of who you were when the alarm clock went off, so that you're more capable and more deserving of creating the life you really want every single day. And if you become that better version every morning, and that's the context and the mindset that you set for your day, it's inevitable that you're going to create the life that you want. It's just simply a matter of time. Whereas most people, though, they don't do that, right? They hit the snooze button in the morning. They waste the morning. They wait to wake up until the last possible moment before they rush out the door, and therefore they stay the same, and their life stays the same. The premise. I said this. I was interviewed yesterday, and I said this in a way where I was a video I was doing, and they go, "Wow, I really like that." And it was the idea that if you want to take your life to the next level, or your success to the next level, or your income to the next level, or your health, right, in any area of your life, first you have to take yourself to the next level, because it only happens in that order. And most people are trying to take every area of their life to the next level while remaining the same. So for me, it's about waking up every day and dedicating time to becoming, again, a better version of who you were when you woke up, being more knowledgeable, more confident, developing your skills, developing your physical, mental, and emotional vitality, right, every day, to really make sure that you win the day.
Did you hear Jim Carrey last week, Hal? Jim Carrey did a speech in a university, and it was like a Steve Jobs speech. And I heard it only because they said inspirational comment by Jim Carrey, and I thought, really? Because you don't kind of expect that from him. And the whole speech is about 26 minutes, and a lot of it was playing to laughs. That's what he's about.
Yeah, sure.
But there was this one bit in there that I've copied, and I'm going to play now, because you listen to this, and this, when I heard it, I thought, wow, I've got to start playing this in the show, because it really, it sent shivers down me. So let me bring Jim Carrey on.
My father could have been a great comedian, but he didn't believe that was possible for him. And so he made a conservative choice. Instead, he got a safe job as an accountant. And when I was 12 years old, he was let go from that safe job. And our family had to do whatever we could to survive. I learned many great lessons from my father, not the least of which was that you can fail at what you don't want. So you might as well take a chance on doing what you love.
How good is that, sir?
Yeah, you're right. I did hear that clip the other day, and the same thing. I got chills. It's so true, and it's brilliant.
It's beyond brilliant, because, with the greatest respect, I wouldn't expect him to say those kind of things. But if you think about it, what's he done? He's somebody who, didn't have a lot, but he's now an A-list Hollywood star, and you're only going to get there by knockbacks, stumbles, falls, successes, and keep on moving forward, aren't you? As soon as you get to the point and go, oh, it's never going to happen, then you're dead in the water. And if you look at all these A-lister stars that we focus in on, and we go, that's how I would like to be like, but you actually start breaking down their dots, it is all the time that they believe that something is going to be better. And even when they're doing the rubbishy, one-line walk-on parts, they feel, right, there might be a two-liner there, and there might be something else. Then they get their break. But it's that mental attitude. It's exactly as you were saying. It's the enthusiasm and the working ethic to actually keep on pushing yourself forward and becoming a better version of yourself.
Yeah, it's, I think that it's every highly successful individual at one point in their life they take a chance on seeing themselves as better than they've ever been before. And rather than, in my book, I call it rearview mirror syndrome, that most people suffer from. We suffer from rearview mirror syndrome, which is where we've got this rearview mirror in our subconscious mind, where we consistently look at who we were and let that define who we are, versus looking at who we could be and letting that define who we are. And so I think that what you're talking about is right, is these successful individuals is, seeing themselves as what's possible for them, not what their past has indicated, because otherwise you're limited by your past. And sadly, that's how most people live their life. Robin Sharma, one of my favorite authors, he said that one of the saddest things in life is to get to the end and realize you could have been, done, and had so much more. And that's the average person's life. And, I don't even think you got to wait till you get to the end. I think one of the saddest things in life is to wake up any day of your life and realize that you could be, have, and do so much more, and then not do anything about it, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
That's one of the saddest things. That's the human existence. You've got to decide that today is the most important day of your life. Today is the day where you define, what do you really want for your life? And maybe it's so far off. I never thought I could be a best-selling author. I wasn't even I couldn't even get a high school essay done on, I was a horrible writer. Being a motivational speaker was a dream, but there's no school for that. There's no class for that. These were things that were just dreams at one point, but it started by me writing the dream down and then getting on Google, right? That's the first step for everybody. 20 years ago, you couldn't do this. Nowadays, you can Google, how do I blank? How do you become a blank? And
how to is the most powerful words, isn't it? How to.
Yeah, everything you want to know how to do is on the internet for free for you. And that's exactly it. Is you've got to decide today is the day that you create the vision for your life, and that you take your first step toward that vision. And every day, dedicate time, even 30 minutes a day, to chip away at your ideal future. Make one step, move 1 inch closer every single day. And if you do that, the life of your dreams, as cliche as it may sound, it's inevitable. It's inevitable that you will get there.
Incremental gains. I say that all the time. It's one step ahead, and then ultimately you will get somewhere. And most of the time, as I'm finding out now, it isn't what I expected at the beginning. When I quit my job, I wasn't expecting to be, an online radio host in any shape or form. It was something that occurred to me, and I ran with it, and it's taken off. But it's been work in progress all the time, and now I'm getting, 100 shows in, and I'm just starting to feel that actually this is something that's, I'm comfortable at. All the other bits were you almost didn't want anyone to listen to them, because now you look back and you go, episode 1 was all right, but God, I could do so much better now because I'm on episode 110. And it's that highlights thing, isn't it? It's that ability that we all have to look at the end product of where people are and totally ignore the steps they've taken to get there.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm the same thing. I've got, I have a podcast. My podcast, it's called Achieve Your Goals with Hal Elrod. I never in a million years thought I would host a podcast. And now, we were talking before the show, you get people that tell you, your podcast is changing my life. And you're like, really? My podcast, like me talking is, that's changing your life? Wow. I'm blown away by it. But no, you're right. It unfolds often that, like, my dream was to be a radio DJ. And at 15, I started my own business doing, DJing on not the radio, but school dances. I was moving in that direction, playing music for people. I thought I'd be a world famous radio DJ when I was, 30 years old. And of course I didn't know that I would have a car accident. I didn't know. So, life goes in different ways, but I think that, it's about pursuing your grandest vision for your life is what attracts and creates opportunities for the vision to expand and become even grander.
When I was 15, I wanted to be a radio host, and people used to say to me, you should be on radio, you should be on telly or whatever. And I never, I sent one letter off, and I got it back and they said, no, there's no opportunities there. And I didn't do anything more with it. And since I've been joining up the dots with everyone on a daily basis, I've started joining up my own dots and thinking back on certain things. And I remembered this letter, and I thought to myself, how amazing that sort of 25 years down the line, I've actually created the radio station that I'm working at, which you couldn't have done. You could not have done that 20 years ago. You were going to be employed. But now you can stick a mic on and be heard in places like Korea. I've got listeners in Korea. Hello, Korea. I love you in Korea. I can't imagine what they're getting from an English chap talking to people, but they're listening. Sure. And the French love me. that is amazing.
Yeah.
I don't think the French actually like the English anyway, really. I hope you do. So how
You're
successful?
bridging the gap. Might create peace between your countries. I mean, wow, the possibilities are endless.
Absolutely. This could be world domination. Yeah, it could be a join up
You'll
dots
be in the
planet.
history books, David.
I tell you, funny enough, though, if you look at my website, one of the things I've got is a globe at the top, because my idea of join up dots wasn't just connecting people's lives based around the words of Steve Jobs. It was about seeing if I could connect the globe. And when I started it, my idea was that somebody in, the Philippines or whatever might listen to this and hear something that somebody is doing in America and go, I didn't know that was possible, but I think I'd be good at it. And, this is my opportunity. So it was like the connecting the world. And I switched off from that because it was too big for me to consider. I couldn't imagine how me sitting here talking to people, recording it, putting it into the world could start connecting. And I'm now seeing that take off. And it beggars belief. When you do get an email from someone and it says, you've changed my life, or you do get somebody come up to you and go, I was listening to that on the way to work, and now I've quit and I've got another job and I wouldn't have taken that action without you. There's a power to what we're doing and a responsibility that you have to take control of, which is mind-blowing, isn't it?
Yeah, no, it absolutely is. And it's interesting, right? They say with great power comes great responsibility. And I don't know if I have great power, or if we would call it that, but it absolutely is. Once you're impacting people's lives, I think there is. But here's the thing. Actually, let me take a different context here. I believe that we all have that responsibility, and that was one of the things that, like, when I was in the hospital, I had this global sense of responsibility. No one told me. I just started to think I have a responsibility to overcome my challenges in as proactive as possible, so that I can learn how to inspire and empower other people to do the same. And I believe that whether you're just talking about your family, your friends, your children, even if you don't host a podcast like David does and you're impacting infinite amount of people, I think we all have a responsibility to fulfill our potential. Because how we live our lives gives other people around us permission to do the same thing. And that can be very bad, or it can be very good. Very bad if you complain all the time and you're settling for mediocrity and you're letting yourself get overweight, out of shape. You're unconsciously giving permission to everyone that sees you, that knows you, to do the same thing, to settle for less than they really want, to accept mediocrity, to complain, to be lazy, to be physically unhealthy. But when you do the opposite, when you become one of the few people that actually won't settle for less than you really want and you deserve, when you talk about dreams and goals and you focus on the positive rather than complaining about the negative, when you do that, you give other, and when you take care of your physical body and you focus on really standards that are high in every area of your life, you're doing a service to every person that you love. And if you don't do that, you're doing a disservice. So I think we all have that responsibility to every loved one, every person in our lives, whether it's, we're trying to change the world or we're just trying to change, one person's world. We owe it to ourselves and everyone that knows us and that loves us, to really live to our full potential.
I love that. I do love that. And as you was talking, I was so infused, I started looking down to make notes and couldn't make any notes because I was just listening. But I noticed second rock bottom. I need to ask you about the second rock bottom. So what was that?
So 9 years, roughly, I guess 8 or 9 years, about 8 years after my car accident, 2008, I had built my life back up, significantly. I mean, I was physically healed. I had gotten in the best shape of my life. I was, I'd put on like 20 pounds of muscle. I was single. Then I met the woman of my dreams. So I was no longer single, but we were living together. We had been together for, I don't know, probably 6 months at that time. And I was convinced she was the one, which, by the way, she's my wife now. So she was the one. But I had just bought my first house. So I just hit Hall of Fame with my company, which was this huge, accomplishment for me. I had just bought my first house. bought my dream car. I had transitioned out of my sales career, and I had launched my coaching business. So I was doing sales coaching, success coaching, life coaching, and that to this day I've been doing that for 9 years. And I had launched my speaking career, and my first book, Taking Life Head On, had hit #1 on Amazon in its category and #6 on the entire website. On all of Amazon.com, out of 11 million books, it had hit #6 on the bestseller list. And so life was great. I was on top of the world. And then the US economy crashed, and it felt like almost overnight I lost everything. My income was more than cut in half. I was living on credit cards. I had accumulated $50,000 in credit card debt over a 6-month downward spiral in which I lost my house to the bank. I stopped exercising completely because I was in fear mode and scarcity mode. I was just like, I got to wake up and work all day, and it wasn't very effective because I wasn't healthy. I was just working, and lost my income. And I got deeply, deeply depressed as a result of losing my house and not being able to pay the bills, and so much fear and so much uncertainty. And 6 months of this downward spiral where I got more and more, thinking of suicide and just not wanting to live and hopeless. And it just kept getting worse and worse and worse. And the reason I believe it was so much more difficult for me, at least emotionally, than my car accident was the car accident really was rock bottom, and it could only get better. Not to mention, I was surrounded by friends and family 24/7 by my side, doctors, nurses, people caring for me, taking care of me. Well, in 2008, people had their own problems. I wasn't being supported by my mom and my dad and people living around me and doctors and nurses feeding me and bathing me. I was on my own. And the hardest thing was it kept getting worse. I thought I was at rock bottom, and then another client canceled. I thought I was at rock bottom, and then I found out I was losing my house. I thought I was at rock bottom, and another creditor called, right? It just kept getting worse and worse and worse. And 6 months of this downward spiral, and my girlfriend, again, now my wife, but girlfriend at the time, one day she just goes, "Sweetheart, I want to help you, but I don't know how. I don't know what to do." She said, "Why? You've got some friends that are very smart, very business savvy. Why don't you reach out to them and get some help?" Because David, let me share an important detail of the story. I was a success coach. So if you could imagine how messed up this was for my identity. Like, I was a success coach that was failing miserably on every level, physically, mentally, emotionally, and financially. I was at my lowest. And yet I was supposed to get on the phone and be energized and excited and have clarity and help my clients. So I didn't tell anyone, because if you could imagine, how do I reach out and go, "Hey, I'm failing miserably, therefore I need clients desperately. Do you know anyone that needs a success coach that's a freaking mess?" Right? It just didn't work.
Join the
queue.
I
didn't tell anybody. Yeah. And so my wife says, or girlfriend says, "Why don't you call John? Hal, John loves you. He's not going to judge you. He's you could tell him. He's not going to tell anybody." So I finally get up the courage. I called John. I said, "John, do you have like 10 minutes, man? I'm in bad shape. I need to talk to you. I got to confess a lot." And he says, "Sure, I'm here for you." And I tell him everything. And then I said, "John, I'm here. I got my computer open. I'm ready to take notes. You tell me what to do to turn my business around, to make money, and I will do it." And John responds in what really disappoints me at first. He says, "Hal, are you exercising every day?" And I go, "What the hell does that have to do with anything that I just told you? Are you even listening to me?" And he says, "Hal, I'm dead serious. You're a smart guy, but if you're not exercising every day, if you're not getting the blood and oxygen to your brain so that you can think clearer, if you're not releasing the endorphins that exercise releases so you can feel better, so you can overall make better decisions and turn things around," he goes, "if you're sitting in your office all day just pounding the phone or whatever, you're stuck right now. You're stuck, and you've got to put yourself in a peak physical, mental, and emotional state every day to turn this thing around." He goes, "So if I were you, I'd go for a run every morning, and I would take your iPod with you and listen to a Jim Rohn audio. Listen to some sort of self-help audio." And I said, "I hate running, John. Give me something else to do." And he goes, "Hal, what do you hate worse, running or your current life situation?" And I said, "All right, touche. Screw you. I'll go for a run." Okay. The next morning, I lace up my shoes, I go for a run, and I'll tell you, David, sorry, it was begrudgingly. I was going out the front door going, this is so stupid. I hate running. I need money, not running. What am I doing? And 2 minutes into the run, I hear a quote from Jim Rohn that changes my life forever. And here's the quote. And by the way, the funny part is I had heard this quote before, and it never changed my life before. Sometimes we've got to hear something, even if we've heard it a dozen times, when we're open to it, we're ready for it, right? Tony Robbins says that, our moments of greatness come in the moment of, either inspiration or desperation, right? That leads to transformation. I was desperate. And Jim Rohn says this, I'll never forget it. I say it almost every day. It's in my affirmations. Your level of success will never exceed your level of personal development. And I'll say that again, because here's how I took it. I want level 10 success in every area of my life. We all do. On a scale of 1 to 10, we all want level 10. But I realized I'm not developing myself into be a level 10 person each and every day to achieve that level of success. I'm a level 2 person right now. My level of personal development is at like a 2. And there's the disconnect. I want level 10, but I'm a level 2 person trying to get to level 10. That's why I'm living at a level 2, because I'm a level 2. And when I say your level of personal development, let me expand on that and kind of define it, because it's kind of a vague term. Your level of personal development, and mine too, it represents who we are as a person deeper than our circumstances. So our level of personal development is our knowledge. It's a combination of things. It's our knowledge. It's our beliefs. It's our confidence. It's our skills, right? So all of that represents and my confidence was low. My beliefs were a mess. My knowledge, I wasn't really learning or growing at that time. I was just in scarcity mode, just trying to work. I wasn't taking time to sharpen the saw. And I realized in that moment, I've got to dedicate time every day to my personal development. And if I want an extraordinary transformation of my life, if I want to get to level 10 as fast as possible, I've got to create the most extraordinary personal development routine known to man. So I run home, and I don't really know what this is going to look like. So I have to Google best personal development practices. I come up with a list of 6. I'm reading articles from Forbes and Entrepreneur and Huffington Post. And I come up with a list of 6 personal development practices. And I write them down, and I look at my schedule, and I go, when in the hell am I going to fit this in? And and it hits me. I go, I got to wake up early. I got to wake up an hour earlier than I normally do. Even though I wasn't a morning person, I thought I got to really get serious. I got to start my day by becoming this version of myself that I've never been, by doing these 6 practices. The next morning when I woke up, David, it felt like Christmas morning. I don't know if you celebrated Christmas as a kid growing up, or think of like, you're a vacation you're going on where you got to wake up early for your vacation or your birthday, right? It was, for the first time in 6 months, I didn't hit the snooze button. I didn't wake up feeling depressed, dreading my life that day. I woke up energized and excited. I went into the living room. I did my morning routine. Now, it wasn't called the Miracle Morning at that point. It didn't have a name. It was just personal development at 5 a.m. But within 1 hour's time, by doing 6 practices, 10 minutes each at 6 a.m., even though my life was still a mess, my bank account was still negative, my credit cards were 50 grand in debt, I was still losing my house. Internally, I felt at a level 10. I had never felt so motivated and inspired and had so much clarity and felt so optimistic. And I thought in that moment, this could be the one thing that changes everything. And then to wrap up the story, I'll fast forward 2 months and tell you the results. 2 months later, doing this routine, nothing else changed in my life, but I did what is now the Miracle Morning every morning for 2 months, 7 days a week. And I doubled my income. My depression didn't even take 2 months to go away. That was gone. It was almost gone within 24 hours. And I went from being in the worst shape of my life physically, where I hadn't exercised a single time for 6 months, to training for a 52-mile ultra marathon that I completed, 5 months later. And that's why I started calling it the Miracle Morning. And that's where I felt that sense of responsibility that I've got to share this with other people. And I started small with my clients. And, now there's tens of thousands of people around the world that swear by the miracle morning as the thing that's changing their life.
I'm not surprised at all. And I'm not surprised, Hal, that you've gone on to become such a success, because it comes out of you. I've heard so many of these conversations, but I haven't once become cynical on them. I sit here enthralled. And certainly the enthusiasm that you show over a Skype call, I can't even see you. God forbid what it must be like when I'm in a room with you at the same time. It's like you're going to spontaneously combust, I reckon.
You'd say, Hal, stop talking already. I need a break. That's what you'd say.
No, of course I wouldn't. And there's one last thing that we want you to talk. We want you to have a chat with your younger self. And this is the end of the show. And this is when we send you back in time to have a one-on-one. And if you did go back into a room and you met the younger Hal, what age would you choose? Would it be a 5-year-old? Would it be the chap just before the tragic situation that you found yourself in at the age of 20? So I'm going to play the music. And when it fades out, I'm not going to say anything at all, because you're on, and this is the Sermon on the Mic.
Here we go with the best bit of the show, the Sermon on the Mic, the Sermon on the Mic.
If I were to meet my younger self, I think I would choose me as a freshman in high school. And the advice that I would give to myself is that, Hal, in order to create the life of your dreams, the life that you really want, in order to fulfill your potential, you've got to start working on yourself every day. When you go home from school or wake up before you even go to school and start reading books, not on science and mathematics, do those books, get good grades, but more importantly, read books written by highly successful people on what you need to do and how you need to think and the mindset and the actions that you need to take to create the life that everyone wants, that so few people, such a small percentage of the people in the world, ever get to live. Become the person that you need to be through daily self-study to create the life that you really want. And I would tell myself that because I believe that that's the key. If you want to take your life to the next level, you've got to dedicate time every day, and ideally do it first thing in the morning so you set your mindset and the context for the rest of your day. Dedicate time each day to becoming the person that you need to be to create everything that you want for your life faster than you ever thought possible.
How can people connect with you?
There's a few ways. My name.com, Hal Elrod, HALELROD.com is the way that you can actually, reach out, get info on me or send me a message. But I invite everybody to come join the Miracle Morning community on Facebook. And it has become, like I said, the most inspired online supportive, encouraging communities I've ever seen. And then last but not least, if anybody is listening right now and you're interested in the Miracle Morning, of course, you can buy the book on Amazon, but let's say you're in a tough financial position, right? I've been there before. If you're like, Hal, I'd love to buy the book on Amazon, but I just don't have an extra $14 right now. We're really going through some tough times. I get it. I've been there. Anyone can go to miraclemorning.com and you can get started for free. You'll get the first few chapters of the book for free. You'll get a 17-minute video training on the Miracle Morning, from me, and you'll also get a 60-minute in-depth training audio on the Miracle Morning. And that way you can get started right away. You can, tonight before you go to bed, you can plan out your first Miracle Morning for tomorrow morning. And again, that's just go to miraclemorning.com and get the free resources and go from there.
Hal, it's been an absolute delight having you on the show today. Thank you so much for spending time with us today, joining up those dots. Please come back again when you have more dots to join up, because that's the beauty of this show. Our histories keep on moving forward, so you've always got dots to follow. And I really do believe that by joining up those dots and connecting our pasts, it's the best way to build our futures. Hal Elrod, thank you so much.
Thanks, David, and thank you everybody for listening. I really appreciate it.
David doesn't want you to become a faded version of the brilliant self you were once to become. So he's put together an amazing guide for you called the 8 Pieces of Advice that every successful entrepreneur practices, including the 2 that changed his life. Head over to joinupdots.com to download this amazing guide for free, and we'll see you tomorrow on Join Up Dots.